Kennedy Jr., and I want to thank our clients who have spoken here and have had the courage to stand up for their rights and for all of us in making sure that the injustice from this company is redressed. And I also want to thank my friend Arturo Rodriguez, who has been for 30 years with me on the barriers, fighting on this issue. Arturo's father-in-law, Cesar Chavez, was the founder of the Farm Workers Union. His last great crusade at the time of his death was trying to get some kind of handle on worker safety in his industry by eliminating pesticide use, or at least informing the people who work in those industries of the kind of risks that they were undergoing for themselves and their families by handling these pesticides. And of course, the most widespread pesticide is glyphosate and Roundup. The company that makes it, Monsanto, is in a unique position in our country and in the world. I've been litigating against the worst polluters in America for 30 years. But Monsanto stands alone not only for its capacity to sell poison and to market poison, but for its other products. And if you look over here, you'll see Monsanto's attorneys photographing these people as part of a strategy to intimidate them and to manipulate. And that is the other products of this company. It's public relations, it's manipulation, it's deception, it's subversion of democracy, and it's intimidation of people like this, the elimination of people who get in its way. And for many years, I've been battling Monsanto and watching them. Monsanto rolled out these strategies with its first product, saccharine. The federal government in 1901 sued saccharine glyphosate. It's a product of coal tar dyes. It has no food benefit, no nutritional benefit, but Monsanto was able to back away that lawsuit. And in doing so, they learned the techniques that they would roll out on all of their products, whether it was uranium production during the Manhattan Project, or there was PCBs, which I have direct experience with. PCBs that were dumped, which were manufactured by Monsanto, dumped in the Hudson River, put 2,000 fishermen, my clients, permanently out of work. The Hudson River is now an international model for ecosystem protection. It is one of the richest fishery in the North Atlantic, but we can't eat the fish because Monsanto put its toxic PCBs into that fish, and everybody in the Hudson Valley has Monsanto's PCBs in our flesh and in our organs. And I didn't give Monsanto permission to put its PCBs, which are carcinogenic, which are endocrine disruptors, which are toxic, into my body. But nevertheless, they put them there. And when we got them to get them out of the fish, when we alerted the federal government and the regulators, they wrote memos within that company saying, we've got big inventories of PCBs, we got to get rid of them. The regulation is inevitable. It's coming, so we need to get rid of these inventories. And they devised a caulk, which they told their sales force, redouble your efforts, and they incentivized them to sell them to public schools all over this country. So almost 20% of the public schools today in America have toxic PCB caulk that was manufactured and marketed by this company, so that every time that those classrooms heat up, it volatilizes. And we now know that, according to David Carpenter, the national expert on PCBs, that a single molecule of PCBs can cause sexual disruption, the sexual development of a child, and can cause IQ loss, permanent IQ loss. And all the other products, whether it's atrazine or Agent Orange, which they were able, again, in all of these products, you see the same kind of strategies rolled out. They roll out a toxin, and then they get government officials and these phony scientists that we call tobacco scientists or biostitutes go out and produce this phony tobacco science in order to confuse the public and to confuse the issue. And they hire sharp lawyers to come and say there's no real problem with this. There's people against us. And with Agent Orange, for example, they were able to get an ally within the CDC over 15 years, generated phony science to pretend that Agent Orange was not damaging to our troops, and they didn't have to pay, the VA shouldn't have to pay those troops. And Congress finally moved in and did its own studies and said CDC had been lying about that. And they began giving, and today, even today, there are veterans who are having children with birth defects. There are veterans suffering from a grim inventory of cancers because of that product that Monsanto was lying about all that time. Atrazine or aspartame is a really good example of that strategy that anybody who deals with Monsanto ought to know about the history of aspartame. Aspartame was indisputably toxic. It causes mania. It causes violence. It causes depression. It causes blindness. It causes seizures. When Monsanto said we are going to try to market this as a sweetener for soft drinks, the Soft Drink Association in this country went crazy. And they said, there's no way we're going to put that in. But Monsanto was able to show them that aspartame was more addictive than crack. And if they put it in those drinks, that people would drink the drinks, and that no matter how much they were sued, the marketing that they got, the revenues that they got from that addictive substance would exceed the cost of those lawsuits. They still had two other problems. They had FDA, which caught them lying on their science and was able to get the U.S. attorney to impanel a grand jury to investigate them with the eye to putting them in jail. What did Monsanto do? It hired the U.S. attorney and ran out the statute of limitations. But they still had one other problem, which was Jared Goyan and Donald Kennedy, who were running FDA under the Carter administration, who said, over our dead bodies will aspartame ever be marketed to American consumers?